Not far from here, we arrive at the location of Antonio's fortress, where Pilate pronounced judgment on Jesus. From this location, leading from the fortress, is a mile-long route through the old city to Golgotha Calvary Hill, the place of the crucifixion. It's also called the Via Dolorosa, or the Way of the Cross, and it is marked by 14 stations, each now a chapel or a marker, noting incidents of Jesus' walk to his death at Calvary.
The fifth station actually fits the topography because Jesus is falling out of the cross and we're going to climb now to go up outside the city to the place of crucifixion. Here's where Simon is pulled out of the crowd to carry the cross.
The walk ends at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
And this is a Crusader church from the 12th century.
What's the name of the church?
Church of the Holy Grave, the Holy Sepulchre. And the stations 10 through 14 are all inside the building, with the idea that Jesus was crucified at the place of the skull, and then in a garden nearby he was buried, and it's all inside the same building according to tradition. Inside the church there are 6 different Christian communities. The main ones are these fellows we see here with the black stovepipe hats, the Greek Orthodox. They had more access to the Turkish Muslim authorities and have the main central sanctuary under their control. But different other groups have different other parts of the church, and they have had fist fights and worse, over the centuries. And so the Muslim authorities got tired of Christians fighting, or one Christian group controlled the door, locked the others out, and this type of thing. So they took the key to that door away in the days of the Turkish Muslim rule. And to this day, an Arab Christian family that lives, an Arab Muslim family that lives right here has the key for that door. And they open it every morning and they close it every night. And that way, no one group can lock out some other group.
But there are some Christians who consider the garden tomb outside the city walls to be the site of Golgotha Calvary, according to Matthew chapter 27.
This was a stone quarry back in the time of Solomon. It later became known as a place of stoning. Of course, the Jewish form of execution. It would have been convenient for the Romans to use the same spot, a place of killing, when they came and occupied here. And it's interesting to note that this area never had houses or homes built on it, probably because it was cursed as a place of death. That's also why they would take someone outside of the old city to stone them and then also to crucify them. They didn't want to bring a curse in the city. At any rate, this would have been an excellent area for Roman crucifixions, or ideal, I shouldn't say excellent. But it would have been a good spot for them because it's a junction between 3 natural roads, one going to Jericho, one to Tel Aviv, one to Damascus. So a lot of people would have gathered here. Romans liked to crucify in front of a lot of people in order to deter would-be rebels. And this would have been a very populated area, or a popular area at least, back 2,000 years ago, much like it is today. All these buses are going on those various roads. You'll also see there what looks like a face in maybe a skull in the face of the rock there. This picture from 120 years ago really popularized this place, but it was already known as a place of a skull. This is the tomb. It was most recently unearthed in 1867. We know a number of details from the Gospels. They're very detailed in the description of the tomb. We know that it was carved out of the rock. It was not a cave. Poorer people were able to bury their dead in the caves, but this is a rich man's grave and it is carved out of the rock. It's a Jewish person's grave from the 1st century. Joseph of Arimathea was both Jewish and alive in the 1st century. And we know that this is a rich person's grave because of the amount of detail. This is also a very large mourning chamber. It's interesting to note that this part here is considered unfinished. The only part that's considered finished, is this part right here, which is interesting because John says from the outside, he specifically notes that he didn't enter the tomb, but from the outside could see that the Messiah was no longer there, but rather the clothes were just folded and on the ground. We even have the detail in Scripture that when they came in, they looked to the right to see where the Messiah was, and the angel was in his place. And There's a number of other details, including that the large group would fit in there. We have at least 5 or 6 people noted in the scriptures that were in there at the same time.
Today, we use the garden as a special place for a communion service.
I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I'll love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have.